which I guess is fair enough. The Weather Bureau must want to know where the rain is falling. But we walked all over Dealey Plaza, and Jack even climbed down here where you can't get through, somehow down this hill and all around here and leaving me for dead. The lamp pole on the far side has got another one. So, you know, I asked Jack if it would be a federal offence to unscrew a rain sensor, because if I looked inside it I might be able to figure out what it really is with my electronics background. But this lamp pole, well, not this one, the 2003 version of that and that one, each of those has a rain sensor. So it's quite amazing. The City of Dallas knows if it's raining on this side of Main Street and not raining on that side of Main Street. I mean, that level of accuracy, we don't have that in Australia. We just know if it's raining over Melbourne. You know if it's raining on either side of Main Street.
You missed the big parking sign that had there's no parking during Assassination.
Oh, is that what that says? Oh. Rain sensors on either side. So look, I don't know if they're microphones or cameras or both, but I'll look at the photos when I get home and try and figure out whether we're being listened to or watched or both when we're doing experiments in Dealey Plaza. The most fun one, which I'll post images of all of these things to Rich's forum, jfkresearch.com. We were doing Mary Moorman in the street measurements here, and my position is that her camera was, where's my belly button? Her camera was about here. So I'm half, Jack has her down here and I've got her here, and I don't know if she's really that short. I have to check. Maybe she's that short and the camera can be that low. But we're measuring things there, and I said to Jack, what are those washers for? He says, what washers? What washers? And we're walking past the back of this lamp pole. This is the 2002. And at the bottom of the lamp pole, between that lamp pole and that piece of concrete that it's mounted on, there were like 4 washers, you know, about that diameter washers, stacked up, and the lamp pole was sitting on them, and they're sort of half sticking out. And Jack says, oh, well, they're probably just balancing up the light pole so that it's not leaning. I said, oh, that's interesting. So I looked around the lamp pole, and there's the same stack of washers all the way around, and underneath, and I got some photos, washers. So I've got a measurement, 1 inch. They and the poles all have numbers on them, so I can just imagine Gary Mack rings up and says pole number 2915, raise it by 1 inch, because Jack just took another photo, and we want to just. It really is bizarre. It really is bizarre. Why do you raise a lamp pole by 1 inch? Anybody that says they're not trying to keep us in the dark in these things is. Let's not have too much fun. Question, does the Zapruder film fit? Now there was, I noticed Jack sort of changed his opinion a little bit. Maybe when we're stuck in the airport for 7 hours yesterday, I convinced him of a few things. There was some question about whether the Zapruder film actually fit Dealey Plaza as a whole, that there was some sort of background magnification is why you saw more and more grass and you never seemed to see Main Street until right at the end. It looked at one stage as if they must have made it bigger so that you wouldn't see too much. Unfortunately, that's not true. It does fit. I'll show you in a moment. The film as a whole matches Dealey Plaza. There were some parts where I had to squish things together as tightly as humanly possible to make it fit towards the end of the film, and wasn't completely happy that it was a beautiful fit. But overall it does fit within the errors, and I find no background magnification and no magnification of Tony Foster either. Now we have what on my laptop in the file folder is actually called Frankenstein, because you have Jack's panorama here with the 1963 panorama over the top, and the Zapruder film turned into a panorama over the top of that, using the same tricks. I think I chose about 40 or 60 frames of the Zapruder film and did the same trick of stitching them together. Now up here, when you've got the start of the film, you see a couple of motorcycle ghosts and so on. They basically washed out. Down here, you see, if you keep seeing the limousine, because they're the frames I chose. There's no sharp edges. That's one of the tricks. You can make them blend nicely into each other with modern technology, and you have the all of this. So this here, you'll see a bit of a blow up of this in a moment, but this part here is from the Zapruder film, including there's a little ghost panel up there, and there's a ghost panel. There's that guy down there under the sign, and there's the Texas, what's it, Texas 95? Sorry?
Texas Highway Department.
Texas Highway Department sign, a little crest-shaped sign underneath on the pole. We'll come to the Stemmen sign in a moment. So you can sort of see the Zapruder frames. Not every single frame, that would have been too much work, but basically the whole, enough to get the whole film put together. So there's Tony Foster, not quite as tall as in Jack's version. You see where all the bystanders were standing. The ones that are moving, of course, are blurred because they appear in a couple of different frames. Down here was the toughest squash to get everything together. The tree, of course, is a little bit fatter than it was 40 years ago. But basically, even to the extent of the white wall and the bushes, and even around here, and then in the ghost images you even see Main Street, and then over here it comes back in the top, and down here you get a little bit of bushes, this bush here, and you get this grass in the ghost images, and apart from this guy which is standing out like a sore thumb, everything fits. So this is what I'm telling you, that most of it seems to work very nicely, and even despite what some people thought, because of reasons I'll show you in a moment. So, you're asking, where's the actual evidence of alteration? I'm not supposed to be proving that it's genuine, but it's hard to put a figure, but as a rough ballpark figure, a gut feeling, we say 95% plus self-consistent. Okay, so it's all understood. We understand where everything was in Dealey Plaza. We understand how the film fits in. We can stitch it together. We've got the mathematics right. We've got the slope of Elm Street right. Mike Pincher said he would eat his clothing if it was only 3 degrees slope on Elm Street, and so now he has quite a menu in front of him. We measured it. We have the photos. We'll post those to jfkresearch.com. It's 3 degrees and it goes up to about 3 3/4 degrees. It looks steep. When you're looking down a hill, it's a sort of foreshortening. It looks quite steep, but 3 degrees is a fair sort of slope. In fact, it's Elm Street slope. So if you ever want to know what a 1 in 20 slope is, and you've been to Elm Street, that's a 1 in 20 slope, which is 3 degrees. The remaining 5% of the film consists of hundreds of small things that aren't quite right, and many of what Jack puts up, some of which I don't agree with, and some of which I prove are wrong, and some he doesn't agree with my proof. But the remaining things, I look at them and say, yeah, something's not right there, but I don't know if I can turn this into a proof. So he says he just likes looking at photos, and I'm a scientist, and that's why we think differently. But there are many small things, and I won't go into all of the small things. Jack has gone into many of them, and there's a few more that come out every day. Like Mary Mormon's coat. I think you can forget about Mormon on the grass until you can explain how come her coat is so short. That could just about seal it as far as I'm concerned on that issue. But lots of little things that scientifically there are too many uncertainties. Like where people are standing, you have to figure out where the person is photographing from, where they're photographing from, where the people are. So you've got multi-dimensions, you've got all these things to figure out, where they were, where they were, where they were. Then you've got to work out the perspective. And a lot of the time things are probably wrong, but very hard to prove. Not to you guys, I could tell you anything and you'd probably believe me, but you get people that want to argue with everything. We want things that are, I'm sorry, I wrote this before I knew you were coming. I didn't want to steal your, is that trademark registered or something? Okay. Well, I think it's a legal term, isn't it? Best evidence. That's what I want to concentrate on. I'm getting to it. I hope I'm not taking too long with all of this. Of the things that are really absolutely, that I would stand in court and testify to. The first few things I'm going to show you I would testify to in a court of law without any hesitation for a second. Stedman's freeway sign. A lot of these things were studied originally by David Mantic and Jack White, and a lot of the time I forget to give credit to them all of the time. I probably wouldn't have enough time to give credit to them for everything. It's one of those cases, I don't know if it was Newton or Einstein that said he's standing on the shoulders of giants. You know, if I can see further, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And that's really what it is. And these guys made a lot of mistakes. And I tell David Mantic, in fact, this particular one, which is the only graph he published in Assassination Science, and I told him, look, it's wrong. And he said, fantastic. And you know you've got a real researcher, a real physicist, a real scientist when he says that. When someone finds something is wrong and he welcomes it, because what that means is we understand something a little bit deeper. Okay? Most people would say, no, I'm not wrong. I've published it, I've got to stand by it. He understands how this works, and that's why he's made such important contributions. The sign seems to get wider as it goes across the film. And that's what was in Assassination Science. And I have to say, this, or just in fact a story about this, was told to me before I'd even known about Assassination Science or Murder in Dealey Plaza or knew who David Mantic was. It got presented to me. I was sort of surrounded by people helping me on the internet who made sure I didn't find anything too useful. And they said, oh, you know, bloody David Mantic, he thinks the film's fake because the sign gets wider. It's just pincushion distortion. And I looked at it, and it turns out it does get wider, and it is pincushion distortion. And so for a little while there, I thought, oh, whoever this David Mantic is, he mustn't know what he's talking about. That was, I don't know what the phrase is, but that was a very selective example out of many, many things that David presented in the 2 volumes, which was grossly unfair to pick on one particular result, which the people presenting it to me obviously realised was a mistake. But what that leads you to do is to understand why, and that's the real advantage, the real advance in what David published, is that it provides yet another proof that we understand the pincushion distortion. Right? He finds an anomaly. The sign is too wide. It gets wider as it goes across. Sorry, I'll do it your way. Wider as it goes across this way. Okay? It gets wider. Not a huge amount, 17% or something maximum. You take into account the pincushion distortion, and there's 2 ways of doing it. One way is to correct the pincushion distortion and then measure it, and it's perfectly flat. Constant width all the way through. The other way is to just do the measurements and use a mathematical formula, and you get the same thing. And in fact, I'll show it here. Why I promised David I'd show this as well. You can see the way the pincushion distortion works. It's maximum over here, which is furthest from the centre. And if you look at that width there, it's coming in a fair way. I mean, this is one example where you can really see what's happening. The pincushion distortion compared to the centre of the frame, which you notice is not changing in size. Okay? It also makes these guys not quite so fat. So if they were worried that they looked really fat in the Zapruder film, I don't know if they're still alive, they actually get a little bit thinner because they're always in the sprocket hole area, and so they look quite fat. This comes in a fair bit. This one's not moving too much, and that explains that up to 17% change in width. So that represents a real advance, or another confirming fact that we understand this pincushion distortion. And that was the first part. In fact, I posted this to Rich's forum about a year ago, and had to say that David's work was wrong. The width, as I was led to find originally, that the width of the sign was in fact correct. But when I was doing it, I noticed something very strange about the way the sign changed. And it wasn't just one frame. I did every single frame where you could see the whole sign. The poles holding up the sign and the edges of the sign are really rectangular in the Zapruder film, as you've seen it before today. The ones that don't have pincushion distortion. They're pretty well rectangular. It's a nice, beautiful sign. In fact, it shouldn't be so beautiful because Zapruder's not looking at it head on. It's facing on the street. It's pointing to the motorists, not pointing to Zapruder. hopefully. And then all of the signs on about that angle. We've got other photographs which show the angle it's on. But still, the sign, beautiful, rectangular sign. When you correct the pincushion distortion, the width becomes correct, which basically means it sort of points to the right background objects roughly correctly. But the poles do all sorts of weird things. It should be the exact opposite. In the film, it should be doing weird things, and when you correct it, it should turn into a real sign. So I had a second part to this investigation, that this sort of behaviour was impossible.